Hey, good morning, everybody. What's up? How's your weekend going? And welcome. It's Saturday morning, Multifamily Unplugged, and buckle up today because you're in for a wild ride, that's for sure. Wanted to just welcome you if you're new to the show. If this is your first time here, welcome. I hope someone told you to be here, or maybe you just stumbled across us. But whatever, like us, love us, subscribe if you are on YouTube because we're always bringing out relevant content, something new, a new guest, some new information, some new tips, techniques about multifamily investing. And if you are a Facebook user or follower, jump over to Facebook or Multifamily Unplugged and join our community over there. Today, my guest is going to bring some excitement and some knowledge and a little bit of fun to the show. So we'll get to that in a minute. But I want to remind you, coming up October 19th and 20th is our two-day virtual event, our multifamily summit. This year, I have over 15 speakers and panelists going to be on the show. Everything from how to get in the business or come from another asset class and jump into multifamily, from zero multifamily units. We're going to have a panel that I think collectively this panel has probably done 150,000 units in the last 5 years. So we're going to have some big producers, some how to scale your business. We're going to have some ancillary people. So we'll have self-directed IRA and 1031, some tax information. We're going to talk about how to raise private capital. I'm going to give a couple deal examples. So this year is going to be action-packed, no breaks. We're going to go right through back-to-back all the way for 2 days. So make sure that you're there. Grab a seat. You're not going to want to miss. Go to multifamily23.com, multifamily23.com, and get registered now. All right, our guest this morning, Tim Winders with Seek, Go, Create. I was on Tim's show a couple of weeks ago and had a great experience and said, hey, I need to get you on my podcast. You know, Tim is calling somewhere from the United States today. He's traveling around the world in his RV. Tim, what's happening?
Great things are happening, man. I got a nice breezy day in the Black Hills of South Dakota. Weather's perfect, and life is good, man. Good to talk to you, Mike.
Yeah, you too. You know, you're in the Black Hills of South Dakota. I always say we're going to wind up in some rabbit hole here on this show. So.
Absolutely will. And you know what? I think that's okay. Sometimes people like to go along when we go down a rabbit hole. I think that's kind of the world we're in now.
Yeah, I love Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, maybe I didn't get it. Maybe I didn't totally understand it.
Well, you know, that's that whole Walt Disney thing, that old rumor that went around, and I don't know, might not be a rumor, might be true that he was doing LSD when he did that one and a couple other movies he wrote.
Yeah, I don't know. No comment. I've got no opinion on that.
Yeah, we grew up in that era, you know. So hey, let's get serious for a minute. So one question I always ask my guests when we get started is, in one word, Tim, what best describes you personally and professionally?
You gave me a little heads up, and man, this is a tough one. So this is a word that describes me most of the time, and I'm aspiring to it. And that word is peaceful. Mm. And do you just want the word? You want me to give a little follow-up to it?
Because, yeah. How do you get peaceful? You know, I think there's probably a lot of people wondering, man, how do you get there?
I want to say that at this stage in my life, it's something I am aspiring to more. And I haven't always been this way. I would be the hustle and grind, you know, constantly clawing, pursuing. And I think there's a time for that in our lives where we do need to, you know, put our heads down and just get some work done. But as I've looked back on my life, I realized I have probably done a lot of that thinking I would prove something, thinking I was working towards something, maybe sometimes out of fear, maybe sometimes out of thinking I was moving in the right direction or shooting for the wrong star or something like that. And I was meeting with I guess a client a few years back, and we spent some time at their home. And I had never had anyone use this word to describe me, Mike. And we were just talking. We were strategizing what's going to be a big business. It was kind of a moonshot type thing that didn't work out. And they said, it's just so peaceful hanging out with you. And I had never had anyone say that about me. And I think it ties in a lot of stuff. I mean, obviously it's our day-to-day actions, it's our habits, it's our goals, it's the way we live our life, but it's also, we also know, you and I know, so it's a big faith component to that, is just understanding there's a bigger picture out there that's bigger than just Mike or Tim or the deal or what we're working on right now. There's more to why we're here. And when we start to grasp that, I think we could have a more peaceful existence.
All right, so let's get philosophical for a minute.
Okay? Oh no!
And here's what I want to know. Obviously, I feel that too from you, right? There is that sense of balance, maybe sense of peacefulness, sense of contentment. People have said things about me that I'm humble, right? And I'm not saying that to be prideful, but I didn't used to be that way. And then the experiences in my life caused that to happen. Do you think that each of us have some word or quality that other people associate you with?
I do think that we have. I'll use the word assignments, and I'll use some spiritual terms here. I hope your audience is okay with that. I happen to believe that those that are of the faith that we are followers of Christ, that we really are citizens of the kingdom of God. Yeah. Now, we're also in this world system doing business transactions and stuff like that. And sometimes those things line up and sometimes they don't. We know how that works. But for people like you and I, and my guess a large percentage of people listening in, it is very easy to begin really hard charging and pursuing those things that are in that world system. And so to really address what you're asking, you mentioned that, you've been through some difficult times. We had great conversations about it over at Seek, Go, Create podcast. I enjoyed that conversation. And I've been through some challenging times. I think part of our journeys are getting to the place where we are, I don't want to say at peace or at rest or whatever, but where we're comfortable where we are. That doesn't mean we have to be totally content. That doesn't mean we're standing in one place, but we're comfortable. I think what I recognize about myself, and from talking to you, if I were to have talked to Mike Morosky back in the 80s or 90s or something like that, and I think that we would have been very nice, cordial. We would have nodded, talked to each other. But in the back of our mind, we would have been thinking, how can we do business together to profit myself, profit him? How can we accumulate and gather more? How can we pursue the financial gain? And there's nothing wrong with financial gain. I want to say that real clear right up front. However, sometimes the tail can wag the dog instead of the dog wagging the tail. And I think that at our core, we need to kind of have this understanding that we are to be content. We're to be at rest where we're at. And then if we're at content and rest, then we could go after, putting together a big multifamily transaction in Oklahoma, or, working on a new project, or starting a new company, or building something new. I think when the building something new or the working on the project is the lead, is when we get out of balance. So I think the true nature of who we are, you asked, is there a word or something that describes us? I think we all have a lot that makes us up. I interviewed someone the other day, and they said they went through the dictionary and found over 4,000 characteristics or traits that describe human beings. And this person went through all 4,000 and realized that he had some degrees of all of them inside him. And we all do. But there's definitely some that rise to the top. Right. And so I think the journey that we're on is allowing the thing that we were created for to rise to the top. And my hope is it's something that's peaceful and restful. And, it's not Tim trying to beat somebody over the head to get a deal done or something like that.
Yeah, boy, honestly, when we started this morning, I had no idea we are going to go down this road. But as long as we're here, we might as well stick to the fork in the road. So I love what you said about back in the 80s or 90s. We might have been cordial to each other and even gotten along, but in the back of our minds, be thinking about how do we do business together, and made me think immediately. Every conversation you and I have had, I haven't thought about how do we do business together once, right? But yet we have this connection between us, right? And I don't know that I felt that way before I went to prison. So I don't know. I was a Christian for years, but I was a pocket Christian. I pulled God out of my pocket when I was in a jam, when the flashing red lights were going off behind me. And today, it's my way of life. The only reason I got through the last decade was because I had Christ in my life, right? And I just say this because I know where you're going to go with this, but today I still have that business. I go because I came home to nothing, right? I've only been home a few years, and I need to kind of get something back, right? And so I am working diligently, but it's different. There's a difference between a decade ago and today. I just finished reading As a Man Thinketh, and if it's a book that I've read every couple of years for years, but this last couple times I've been through it, what an impact it makes. James Allen was like the guy, the master of positive thinking and how we should live and how we should think, and it's so scriptural too. So, what do you? I'm going to just shut up and let you talk.
Yeah, well, the power of that. Sorry, I've got. Yeah, you prompt me. Yeah, you're interviewing me now, right? Okay, so as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Mm. And Mike, this is kind of where I've come to at a stage in my life. And listen, we're all on a journey. Everybody's going through different stages, but I used to focus on As a Man Thinketh when I read that book multiple times during the early 90s and all that. And I think I missed the second part or the subtitle or the proverb that it comes from, which is in his heart. And my heart was pretty hard, even though I was probably a nice guy. I would smile and I was friendly and I would remember your name because I knew to remember your name is a powerful, how to win friends and influence people strategy and technique. And I was very technique driven, very transactional driven. And I did pretty well up until 2008. And in 2008, I think this may help or hurt some of the folks that are listening in. We had over $15 million in property. I think of over 100 doors, if you wanted to count doors at that point. We had a national coaching business that was a 7-figure plus business. We were coaching, doing masterminds, all the stuff. And then we also had a lead gen business that was a 7-figure business in 2008. And I'm going to say this real quickly. If we want to dive into it later, we can. But by 2013, I was homeless and bankrupt and living in a Honda van with my wife. Now, the reason I bring that up is because it's part of my story. And just like your story is so powerful and important, and people enjoyed hearing it over at Seek, Go, Create. And it's the story of our hearts moving in the direction that it needed to go. We were good at what we did. I mean, I could buy some houses. I could get some real estate. I could negotiate. I could get some money from people. I could do all of those things as a man thinketh. But it was not in my heart the way it needed to. I needed my heart. It sounds trite to say it needed to be softened. It needed to be prepared for what I think is really the journey we're on. This is a little bit preachy, but I think you'll get it. I have come to believe lately that the reason we're here is to do business, is to do whatever we're supposed to do business wise and all that. I do not think that we're supposed to just, some people are, but just sit around and spend time in prayer and, all that type stuff. I think you and I are wired for business, and that's what we're here for. That's our ministry. That's our mission field. That's where we're supposed to be. But the big picture is what we're here for is to prepare our hearts for eternity. And what we went through was a doctorate in heart preparation, because me, if you were different, I don't think you were from our conversation, I thought that I was so good and so smart and so fantastic when it came to real estate and doing all these things and marketing and coaching and training. I thought that maybe I didn't need that higher power for my business world. Now I'm, my marriage and my raising kids and all that, but business, I'm pretty darn good at it. Well, kind of like you said, the Lord told you when we went through the downfall, this is what I feel like the Lord told me. He said, "Hey, Tim, listen, all those business ideas, I gave those to you. All those skills and talents, I gave those to you. But I wanted to work with you in those projects. Those were things I wanted us to do together. I didn't want you to treat me like an ATM machine and go out and do it on your own. And only when you got in trouble or a deal went bad or the economy got bad that you all of a sudden stepped to the ATM machine you called God and said, hey, listen, I need to make a withdrawal now. You're laughing, Mike. You know exactly what I mean." He said, "I want you and I to lock arms and do these projects, do these businesses, do these, projects like these podcasts and things like that. I want it to be together because these ideas are from me through you." And that is preparing our hearts for, I don't know that our hearts will necessarily be frozen where they're at in eternity, but I do think that our life here is getting our hearts ready. It's kind of like getting that muscle ready for where we're going to be in eternity. And I know that my heart needed a lot of work.
Yeah. Well, it's two of us.
It's all of us. If for those that are still with us on this call, we've dove deep quickly. It's everyone.
You by now, but that's okay. Listen, you mentioned how to win friends and influence people. I think that's a book that should be taught in high school. Because it is systematic, it is foundational, but I think it's foundational how we should live, how we should treat other people. To think, to have the audacity to think that you even care about what I have to say is beyond me, right? What I really need to believe is what matters to you. And, so I just had to say that, but because I think too many of us, and I was a big player in this, was, hey, here's me. Let me be quiet right now. What else do you want to know about me? Right? I'll never forget though, when we talk about that one word, mine is tenacious. And I'll never forget, because I'm a scrapper, man. I'm a grinder. I walk in this client's house one day. I'm probably 3 years in the residential real estate business. He goes, "Man, Borowski, you are so tenacious." And I said, "Thank you." I had no idea what it meant. Run home, get the dictionary, and go, "Oh yeah, that is me." So, Tim, talk about your background, though. You've alluded to a few things here. Tell us, where you came from and how you wound up on the road now.
Yeah, I grew up in and around the Atlanta area, and what's interesting and fascinating about where I grew up is that when I was born in my early years, formative years. It was sort of a small town on the outskirts of Atlanta. And I used to joke and say it was sort of the end of the age of innocence, the 70s, growing up in a little bit of a small town that was getting swallowed up by Atlanta while I was there. And so when I finished up high school, I always, Mike, I think this is kind of cool. I always thought that I was going to be a coach. Both my parents were educators, and I'm just kind of wired to reach inside people and pull out what I think is the greatness that's in there. And I think there's greatness in everyone, but it looks different. It's not me telling you what your greatness is. It's me interacting with you and having a relationship with you so that I could pull what was put there that you may not even know it's there. And I always wanted to do that. So I was going to be a teacher and a coach until I found out how much my parents made. I didn't know we were poor. I hated that we paid teachers so little, like real teachers, not like us business teachers. We're kind of like, we really, go where the money is. The other teachers, those are more the ministry minded people. They're in the battlefield. They are first responders. They're on the front lines. You and I are frou-frou, teachers and coaches and all that. And I don't, you know what I mean by that. But so I started, this was late 70s, early 80s, about the time I was getting out of high school. I started getting these greed glands that started just really developing, and I wanted to make me some money. It was the go years of the Reagan years and all of that. And, the greed is good, type decade. And so I decided that instead of being a teacher, engineering was really popular and a high demand role. I decided to go down the road to Georgia Tech and get an engineering degree, which I was okay at math and science, but it was probably not what I should do. So with this group, I want to tell this story because it was kind of cool. My dad, who was an educator, worked for the State Department by that time, decided my freshman year at Georgia Tech that he was interested in real estate. I think he got a Robert Allen No Money Down book. Classic, right?
Want me to grab mine? You want to see it?
You got it. But wait, there's a name. Gosh, I guess I can mention this name. He went to a seminar by a guy by the name of Dave Delgado that I'm pretty sure served some time later for some stuff he did and all that. Do you remember that name?
Dave Delgado was a student of Robert Allen's. And I remember the conversations back then that Robert Allen kind of had a grudge that Delgado went off and did this on his own after learning all this,
So my dad we went to a seminar together. I thought it was a Dave Delgado. Maybe my memory's a little fuzzy here. It was about 82 or something like that, by the way, 82, 83. I had just started at Georgia Tech, so I was a college kid. And my dad's a bright guy. He passed away last year. Very bright guy, but not quite as aggressive as I was. I listened to all these tapes and all. I remember there were two guys sitting on a sofa somewhere in Hawaii. That's what my memory of that was. And this is one thing I heard. They said something about if you ever see a garage sale or a moving sale, you might be able to get a piece of real estate from that because, they might be selling the house. So I'm coming home from college one Friday afternoon, driving from Atlanta back out to the little town we're in just outside of Atlanta. And I see a sign not far from our house. It says moving sale. So I did a U-turn in I don't know if I still drove the Vega, if I had the little Honda by that point. I had a 74 Vega, Mike. We might need to get a translator because a lot of people will not know.
I think you lost people at Reagan.
So anyway, I go up to the moving sale. Now I'm 18 years old, maybe 19, walk up to this sale. They're selling a bunch of stuff. And I walk right up to the people that owned it. And I said, "Hey, is the house for sale?" And the guy looked at me and said, "Well, we're behind on some payments and, we need to, but we can't." I go, "I'm interested." So make a long story short, had a VA loan that at that point you could be taken over, and my dad, I took him back over there. He acquired that property, and that property is still in the family. I don't know how many years later, 40 years plus later. And so anyway, so it kind of got dad going a little bit. I was in and out, and I came out of Georgia Tech. I started my first business doing some other things while I was at Georgia Tech. Finished up in the 80s, got married, and started corporate, which really wasn't my gig. You know, sometimes life is learning the things you don't want to do. And I recognized day one, maybe day two, corporate is not for me. I do not need to be doing that. So anyway, got involved with, I did some multi-level marketing, which really helped a lot of my skills and stuff like that. And I ended up leaving what I was doing with Bell South in the mid 90s. And this led all the way up to the early 2000s when I circled back to real estate. And dad had been buying a couple properties. My sister had been doing some things. And I said, hey, listen, I've got a gap in some time right now. Why don't we build us a real estate company? And so we partnered on a few things, and we started buying 3, 4, 5 houses a month, and still wired to coach. So I quickly got back into the coaching while we were building all the product, the systems and all to acquire properties and things like that. So we cranked it out for a number of years, and that led up to what happened in '08, which we saw it coming. I'm sure you did, and knew something was happening, but we weren't quite prepared for the partnership issues, the length of it, and other things like that. And so it was the awakening that I needed to kind of, get my attention and all that. So we were living in a country club. I thought I was semi-retired, golf course, lake, everything like that. And all that was gone just a few years later.
Yeah. I got to go back to the Vega for a minute. Did you have a V8 in it?
No, it wasn't a Cosworth, man. I had a friend of mine from high school recently said, yeah, Tim had that Vega Cosworth. I said, dude, man, I paid $400 in 1979 or 78, paid $400 for a 74 Vega, which the body style looked really cool. I mean, it was a good looking.
It was a cool car.
So it was.
I had a buddy who was in the body shop business, and he had like a 76 Vega. They changed the body style just a little bit that year, but it was blue, like midnight blue, and he's supported the suspension and the frame and put a V8 in it. That car, Tim, that car was faster than hell, man. I'm telling you, I had an Olds 442 that was fast, and this car, though, my goodness, it was so light. It was just like hydroplaning. Anyhow, that's enough of the muscle car thing.
Yeah. There was no muscle to mine. In fact, it used, I think I killed most of the mosquitoes in my town because that aluminum block engine used more oil than it did gasoline. And it was 3-tone. It was red, rust, and Bondo. I literally had water that came in above the drive. If it rained, and it did in Georgia often. But I spent a year, fixed it up a little bit, got an Earl Scheib paint job, and sold it for $1,000. So I was on my way to financial independence.
There you go. I love that. That's perfect. So, are you in the multifamily business, or how'd you get into multifamily business?
It's very interesting. I work with a number of people that are still involved with real estate, and I love real estate. I mean, I'm invested in some passively, but since all that we went through, I really haven't been, I'll say, hyperactive in the real estate world. And I think a lot of that is for purpose. I get to talk to a lot of folks like you and, buddies and all that. And so I could speak the language, but in answer to your question, not really. I mean, I invest and I watch it. I read about it. but I'm not as involved. I now, let's fast forward. I live in an RV. My wife and I have been traveling for 10 years. We have probably more financial resources at our fingertips than we ever had, without getting into a lot of details on that, if you know what I mean. And we lead a fairly simple, peaceful life in our 350, 400 square feet. I have some interest in some properties, but we won't say I have ownership in some properties. And I primarily work with executives and leaders, and I say I coach them, but I really almost partner with people in just helping them achieve and accomplish whatever they're trying to accomplish. So that's what I do now. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think that's the best coaching in the world, is when you partner with your people. And
Yeah.
you and I kind of come from that same mentality, because, hey, listen, when I played high school sports, and, the coach always told you what to do and how to do it. But I think today life is different. It's that partnership ability. Um, a quick story about somebody I know who had, massive wealth before 2008. 2008 just got crushed, wiped out. I lost 100 million. I think he was probably worth two more than that, a couple 100 million. Lost everything today. And he said to me when I interviewed him on my podcast, he said, I didn't think I'd ever go back into real estate. He goes, but what I've done is I've gone into real estate. I own nothing but control everything. And that's the old Robert Allen way, right? That's own nothing but control, or Carlton Sheets, own nothing but control everything. So I love that can have a little investment in real estate, and, because then you're not, there's that place where you can participate in real estate passively and get the rewards, because there's a lot of rewards on the passive side as a passive investor, from where you don't have to deal with tenants, trash, toilets, crime, demographics, all the minutia, right?
Yeah. I think we all need to, this is, I think, part of, the place we're working to arrive at is understanding what our role is in certain things. We have such a copycat society. I see how successful Mike is and what he does in real estate. And you know what? I need to do exactly like that. No, I know how I'm wired. And listen, a lot of people will talk about substance addictions. And I think you and I had some conversation about that over at Seek, Go, Create. And a lot of people are addicted to, I don't know, porn and things like that. I recognize this. I was doing an interview with a guy named Mark Whitaker on our podcast over at Seek, Go, Create. And he was a guy that the Matt Damon movie, The Informant, was based on. And he wore a wire to bring down one of the biggest price fixing cases of all time for Archer Daniels Midland, huge company, top 50 worldwide company. He wore a wire for 3 years, which at that point was a record. No one had ever gone under the stress and pressure of wearing a wire for that period of time. But Mark and I are having, and he later went to prison. His faith grew through that. Anyway, great conversation that we had. But we were having this conversation, Mike, and sometime during the conversation, we were talking about he was in his early 30s, had corporate planes, Ferraris in his garage, living massively wealthy life, but yet he was still doing some things to get more. And we were talking about it, and I was talking about my situation. And what we both recognized was that we, and many people do, have an addiction to more. It's not necessarily money. It's not necessarily alcohol or whatever. It can lead to manifestations there. But it's like if we are right now working with one company that's a 7-figure company, we need more. We need that company to be 20 million, 50 million, 100 million, or we need another company that does it, or we need another. And so I have to recognize, and this is part of the word you asked me at the beginning, Mike, the peaceful. For me to be peaceful, I have to do whatever programs or whatever to quell that addiction to more. And part of it is living an intentional, simple lifestyle. I do not have a personal home at this time. There is not a piece of property. This is going to be great for a real estate. But people are going to go, wait, what did he say? I do not have a home. You know, some people would say homeless. We use the word nomad because it just sounds a little better.
Right. Did you see that movie? That movie was great.
I've seen pieces of it. Yeah, it's similar. And you know what? It's part of what I do to quell the things that I know can take over in me. And it's part of why I think people need to recognize how do they need to work with Mike. You know, they don't need to do what Mike does. They just may need to park some money with you and then go the other direction and say, Mike, do your thing and let me know every 6 to 12 months what's going on whenever the reporting is. You know what? I'm not going to get, because see, I have to watch out too, is that I would sometimes want to get all in your business and say, hey, listen, tell me, I need to know some of the, where are cap rates, what's going on, what's the vacancies, things like that. And you don't need that. You need to do what you do. And people like me or people that might be listening in, they just need to say, listen, here's 100K, do what you do, coming out of my solo 401k or something like that. And I think it's important. The reason I went through all of that is we need to ask ourselves questions. Sometimes we need to have help with it, coach, mentor, whatever, to know what our role is. And our role, our assignment, I think I said this earlier, in the kingdom of God is one of the things that we're here for, is to find out what that is. See, I still think, I love the story you tell about being brought back into raising capital. There's a great clip we took from the conversation you and I had about your kind of redemption, is what I called it, in that, where you thought you would never do it again, but you realize now you can do it because your heart is now in the right place for doing it. You know how to do all the technical pieces of it. Now your heart, because you've gone through the mistakes, you've made all the mistakes. See, we have to identify and know what our role is. I think that's important.
So it's interesting. I know what my role is today, and it's become clearer the last couple of weeks. So my purpose here, I think, is to build a business, build relationships, build into people through those relationships. But my story and my history is much more important than anything else. Tim, I've gotten 3 phone calls in the last month from people who've said, I've heard your story. I'm with a sponsor. I think there's something fishy going on. Can you walk me through that? And I got a phone call yesterday from somebody, and I was amazed. I was like, you're kidding. That actually happened. So if I can help people or help people see something different, I think that's what my purpose is, right? And I have that sickness, Tim. I'm an addict. I'm a recovering alcoholic and drug addict. I'm an addict, right? So work for me is that other addiction. And I said this. I said, hey, when I get to 500 units, I think I'd be able to slow down just a little bit and kind of coast. But I'm at like 400, and I'm thinking, well, maybe another 500, right? So it is. I get it. And how many people are listening to this right now going, holy shit, that's me, you know? because it's most of us. The more, right? It's not even money. I mean, my mission in the multifamily business is to provide safe and secure housing for my tenants. So I love that. I love to be able to do that. It's not about the money. It's about the accomplishment, the more the you know. So for whatever that's worth, this is your show anyhow. So
No, but you're asking the questions. What's the next question?
I don't know that there is a question. I think it was just a comment on what you said.
Yeah.
We're 40 minutes into a 30-minute show.
Well, I love that we have these conversations in the business environment, because the way our first world cultures are now is that's where most people, it manifests there quite a bit. And this is the interesting thing about it. Drugs, other addictions, obviously the alcohol is okay in some environments until it's not okay. But this form of success, chasing after more, it is not just accepted in our culture and society. It is applauded. It is elevated. It is what we're told we're supposed to do. It's one of the reasons why I think my missions is to do what we're doing on a lot of our shows and the book I've written and things like that, is how do we redefine what success is? What does success mean for you, Mike, as the individual? It's not copying what Tim did or Robert Allen or definitely not Dave Delgado or any of those guys. It's what does success mean for you? And to dig down even more, to circle the conversation back, it's what's your assignment here? I think both of us have a bigger picture view now. We know we're created. We're not mistake and accident or anything. That we're created. That doesn't mean we don't mess up and make mistakes and we've got flaws and stuff like that, but we're created for something. And part of my mission is helping people get closer to that assignment or that what they're created for. And I think a lot of it is in business. A lot of people think, especially when they, start becoming followers of Christ or come to some type of a faith moment, they think that ministry, full-time ministry, being a missionary is the only thing they could do. And you went to Bible school like I did. You get into a Bible school setting and people think the only thing you could do that's worthwhile is to be a pastor. No. In fact, for many people, it's the worst thing you can do. I'll just go ahead and say that. I'll be blunt. It's one of the worst things you could do. What you really need to do is gather people together like Jesus did. He got fishermen. He got tax collectors. He got some people that were political zealots. He did not go to the church to get his 12. He went to the marketplace. And you know what? Those people came, they did ministry, and then they went back to the marketplace. They fished. They did. I can guarantee you they were rough around the edges. We would get along with them really well because they were business people. And so I think that part of our mission, if you will, is to find these equippings that we have. Mike, the master deal maker, he brings people together financially and finds the deals, gets the people together that needs to make the deal happen. And he puts all that together. That is your creation. That is what you're created for. But you do it in a way at rest and peace, knowing that some are going to work out, some aren't. And you do it to the best of your ability. At the end of the day, when you hit your pillow, you go, you know what? I did it as best I can. And I know there's going to come a day where maybe I won't do any more, but I'm just moving along. And that's different than the go, grasping at everything you can. And that's kind of what I'm all about. Is kind of helping people identify what that is and then maybe keep them in check along the way while they're pursuing it, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It's like not many people will say to hard chargers like you and I, hey, dude, I think you're getting a little bit out of balance here. And I don't even like the word balance. I don't think it's balance. I think you're getting off mission is what I really think. And you're getting off mission because you're forgetting that you were created for something, and you're forgetting who the creator was that created you. And you need to kind of back off and let the creator get ahead, and you step into what was created instead of you thinking that you're the creator and the
Speaking of
magic.
speaking of creating, how do people find you at Go Seek Create or
It's,
Seek Go Create?
yeah, just Seek Go Create. They could go to seekgocreate.com, or if they're listening to this on podcast or any of the socials, we are Seek Go Create. They could find us there. We're trying to put out, cool stuff like clips and all from interviews that I do with people like you, so that people can kind of just get some of this message wherever they can. But seekgocreate.com or Seek Go Create on any of the social channels.
Hey, I have to say, this has been great. This has been fun. One of the funnest podcasts I've ever done, and I've done hundreds of these at this point. And I just need to say that it's been awesome to get to know you even a little bit more. And, you and I talked the other day about how we continue to build this relationship. So I hope that continues to go on. And I hope people learn from that, how to connect and how to grow. And, I want people to be inspired and laugh and have a great time. So, Tim, thanks for being here. Appreciate you.
You bet. Thank you, Mike. Always enjoy talking to you.
All right, everybody. Hey, if you guys need to get a hold of Tim, go to seekgocreate.com. Check him out. Check out his podcast. Check out the podcast I was on with him. And we will see everybody